The internet has given idiots a platform. Now, there's a reason why you can't attain a medical degree via doing a Google search and doing an online exam. I've studied critical reading, epidemiology, statistics. I've had to pass an exam in it. So I do find this whole thing quite scary. Let's talk about hematocrit again, because I've already done a video on this. I'm not going to go over hopefully the information that we went over before, but there still seems to be some sort of non-compute with all this. Hormones. It's all about how you feel. We want you to feel amazing. We don't care about anything else. So, no, that's not true, obviously. You know, there are major organs that are affected by hormones. So, cognitive well-being is incredibly important, but it's not all the be-all and end-all. Hello, skin. How are you feeling today? Well, I'm feeling quite good, but my DHT was a little bit high. No, come on, guys, get a grip. So it is obviously incredibly important how you feel, but there are physiological parameters that you must take into consideration when administering testosterone and monitoring your levels, etc. So hematocrit is one of those things. It's all about how you feel. Okay, let's apply that standard to blood pressure. Now, surely there can be no confusion about the importance of monitoring and optimizing blood pressure. Again, you can have elevated blood pressure and feel great, and it's all about feeling great, and have a heart attack and a stroke. It's not until you have the long-term complications that that issue of a persistently elevated blood pressure causes a heart attack or a stroke. It's all about how you feel. No, it's not. There are physiological parameters that you need to monitor. Blood pressure is a perfect example. It's also a pertinent example because it relates to this issue of erythrocytosis. Now, yes, there is a difference between polycythemia vera and erythrocytosis. Now, the difference is erythrocytosis is essentially red blood cells, and polycythemia vera is all of the constituents of blood, and it's a rare cancer. Now, we do know there's an issue with polycythemia vera, but can you apply the same standard or rationale to erythrocytosis? And the answer to that is yes. It's not the same. So polycythemia vera is more dangerous because it includes the other factors like platelets, which are involved in clotting, and other clotting factors, but the same biomechanical principles apply. An increase in red blood cells increases the viscosity of your blood, ergo the blood pressure increases, the cardiac demand increases, and that will have a subsequent knock-on effect. Scary stuff. Okay, so what else? There's an argument that people who live in high altitudes have high hematocrits and they don't have to worry. Well, that's down to genetics. Okay, it's not rocket science. What else? People with COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, do well. They're fine with raised hematocrit. Why do they have a raised hematocrit? It's because they cannot get enough oxygen into their blood in order to feed the organs. Now, at rest, yes, a lot of them are okay. And there are compensatory mechanisms that mean actually a normal oxygen saturation for some guys with COPD can be as low as 91, 90, and they can cope quite well. Would you ask them to run 10K and expect them to have a comparable time and not have any negative health implications or consequences as a result of having a raised hematocrit and low oxygen as a result of their chronic pulmonary obstructive disease? No, you wouldn't. So using that as an example is a little bit special. It's okay. What else? Cyclists. Quite possibly the fittest people on earth. It's a bold statement, but from an endurance perspective, for sure. There is a disproportionate amount of cyclists having heart attacks and strokes. Why is that? Because they are incredibly fit. It's no secret that doping, and whether that be EPO or test or another sort of anabolic compound, salbutamol, naughty boy, is rife. Now, Lance Armstrong, possibly the greatest cyclist, or Miguel Indurain was another one, obviously, stripped of all his titles, but they were all doing it. Come on, wake up, wake up. Blood doping. They were, whether it be transfusions or EPO, they were manipulating their levels, causing massive physiological insults to their bodies. Now, there are stories. Watch the podcast with Joe Rogan and Lance Armstrong. It's a bit of an expose. It's brilliant. Well worth a watch. Now, he was talking about cyclists waking up at 3 a.m. and having to go for a bike ride because they felt awful. Now, why did they feel awful? Well, it was because they were doping and they had raised hematocrits. And so they did have symptoms. The fittest people on the planet had negative symptoms from having a raised hematocrit. So the fact that you feel okay with a raised hematocrit and realise it's all about how you feel, no, it's not all about how you feel. It does not mean that is a standard that you can apply to everybody. This really shouldn't be rocket science. So again, studies. We have the pseudo-experts talking about studies. The difference between observational and interventional. There have been no randomized controlled trials demonstrating the dangers of an elevated hematocrit from TRT. Okay, good luck passing that via an ethics committee. It will not happen because it doesn't take a very intelligent person to work out that it would be unethical to expose a cohort of people to having a persistently elevated hematocrit in order to demonstrate long-term physical problems such as an increase in incidence of heart attacks and strokes. Now, it's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen because people who make these decisions about running these clinical trials have a modicum of intelligence. We do know that a raised hematocrit will cause a raise in blood pressure, and ergo, we know what happens with raised blood pressure. But I feel great. I'm glad you feel great. but you probably feel great with the raised blood pressure until you have a heart attack and stroke. So you have to apply that standard and that rationale. Hormones are all about feeling great. They're all about feeling great as long as you feel great and your other physiological parameters are normal and optimized. That word, we should ban that word because it gives it, it drives me mad. So yeah, shame on you. It's all about feeling great. It's all about sustainable, long-term physical and psychological well-being. Here endeth the rant. That was it.